Today is primary voting day in New York, and they have a hell of a choice. They can elect their former governor and former attorney general, Andrew Cuomo, who had to resign in disgrace because it was discovered that he had affairs with office workers and sexually harassed other staffers up in Albany. Plus, he was an incompetent tyrant during the COVID-19 pandemic that many people believe led to the deaths of thousands in nursing homes that he forced to take COVID positive patients to the most vulnerable. I mean, say what you will about the COVID-19 pandemic. One thing we knew very early on, and we certainly know now, is that the most vulnerable people who were most likely to die from that virus were the elderly and people with comorbidities. And Andrew Cuomo forced COVID positive patients into nursing homes. And he's the front runner for mayor of New York right now as he stages his political comeback. But the other guy who is vying for the Democrat nomination today, well, he's a full-on communist. And he announced yesterday that he wants to take over the grocery stores in New York City and make them government-owned and operated. I wish I were making this up. His name is Zohran Mamdani. He's currently polling either in first place or second place in the latest polls for today's Democrat primary. And, well, here he is confronted by a local news reporter who picked up on the fact that depending on who he's giving an interview to, he seems to have a very thick or slight or non-existent foreign accent. And oh, by the way, that foreign accent is impossible to describe.
More than they hate a politician they disagree with, they hate a politician they can't trust.
On the subject of trust, you've adopted different speaking accents in different scenarios.
But they go to their local bodega.
Is there one that's real and one that's affected?
What I would say is, as any immigrant knows, having been born in Kampala, Uganda, and then raised in South Africa and moving here when I'm 7 years old, is there are different parts of my life.
Worldwide tour is a worldwide tour is a worldwide tour.
Mamdani was talking about a worldwide press tour back when he was a rapper.
Bring the flavor to the fish, bring the flavor to the rice.
In a Disney movie directed by his mother.
Nepotism and hard work goes a long way. Here in New York City, this is how I speak, this is how I am.
Do you believe in the First Amendment, Tom Homan?
Because I think...
What a guy. My God, New York, what the hell are you doing up there? Seriously. He's the front runner now. He got the endorsement from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because he does TikTok videos and he's young. Oh, and he's a communist. Here's one of the aforementioned TikTok videos. He thinks that prices are too high in the grocery stores in New York. Dude, I mean, have you ever been to New York? Everything is more expensive in New York. But to tackle the food price problem, he's got a great idea, something that always works. Have the government take them over.
Grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way. I'm Zohran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores, whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging. These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent, and will pass on those savings to you.
Wow, what a guy. Gonna pass on those savings to you. But wait, isn't all of this money government money? So what do you mean savings? And what do you mean passing it on to us if it's our money in the first place? Let's start this from the beginning and break apart all of the lies that you were just told, because that's what communists do. They lie. Well, that's not the only thing they do. Then they kill you if you don't comply. That'll be next. But let's start with this.
Grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed.
Well, actually, the cost of eggs and milk have gone down recently because of supply and demand considerations. But it is amazing to me. Have you noticed that the entire 4 years of the Biden administration, nobody was talking about we were talking about the price of eggs and milk, but you wouldn't hear politicians talking about it. You wouldn't hear the media talking about it. They had to be dragged kicking and screaming to have a conversation about the cost of milk and eggs. Now, suddenly, Donald Trump is president of the United States for 150 days, and all you're hearing about is how expensive everything is, when in fact the prices have come down, certainly from where they were in the middle of the Biden administration. Okay, so the cost of eggs and milk have skyrocketed. So who's to blame for that?
Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day, depending on what they can get away with.
What they can get away with. Well, first of all, dynamic pricing is an interesting way to put it, and I would like to see some evidence or proof of that. But the fact of the matter is, if you've got a short supply of a product that everyone is wanting to purchase, and suddenly, yes, you can get more for that product because there's high demand and low supply, and there's nobody else on the block that has eggs or milk, well, then, yeah, I guess that is something that you could do. That, again, is the law of supply and demand. It's not corporate greed. It's not price gouging. It's supply and demand. You want to fix it, then you get more supply. You don't control the supply, which is what he's suggesting. All right.
It doesn't need to be this way. I'm Zohran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores.
City-owned grocery stores. I don't know if you've been to New York recently, but there is nothing that the government in New York does well and efficiently, and certainly not with you, the consumer, in mind. Just imagine what it would be like to go to a city-owned grocery store, because it'll be run and managed and staffed by the same people who, run the DMV and run the subways and run all of the other very efficient public services that New York City gives you. And also, by the way, they'll all be government employees with government benefits and government rules and government management. And this is my favorite part of the video, where he says it's like a public option.
It's like a public option for produce.
Did you see what happened there in the graphic? First, it shows you a public option for healthcare, but then he changes the hospital
for produce
to a grocery store. Funny thing about the public option for healthcare, that's an idea that's been floating around, really for decades, and we've always rejected it. There is no such thing as a public option for healthcare right now in America, because the American people are repelled by the idea. We don't want to be beholden to the government for making decisions about our healthcare, about our doctor, about our needs and our medical needs. We've seen what happens in other countries. You try getting an MRI in Canada right now. Have you seen the horror stories there? So we don't want a public option for our hospitals and our doctor's appointments, but no. We've got a better idea. How about a public option for the food you eat? And let's just be clear here, as he says, it's just an option. It'll just give people an opportunity, an outlet to be able to get their grocery at the city-owned grocery stores instead of those big, bad, mean, old corporate-owned supermarkets, which, by the way, last I was in New York, there really aren't any. Maybe Whole Foods. Maybe, is D'Agostino's corporate-owned? I don't think so. Sbarro's. It's not like New York is full of these giant mega grocery stores all through the city. Who's he going after? He's going after probably the small bodega owners, family-owned businesses, not big corporate-owned stores. It's just a power grab. But think about it for a minute. The second these city-owned grocery stores take over in New York, guess who's going to be the single biggest purchaser of food in New York City? The government of New York. And they'll be able to control prices. They'll be able to control supply and demand. They'll be able to squeeze the suppliers. They'll have close to a monopoly in one fell swoop, just like that, over all those small family-owned businesses. You don't like Walmart when they come into town and do that sort of thing? Just wait till the city of New York, which last I checked had a pretty big budget. And also, they get to control all the rules and regulations that everyone else has to live by. So imagine being in business, like the grocery store business, and at the same time being able to control the rules and regulations that all your competitors have to live under. Yeah, you see the play now, right? Okay, let's keep watching.
We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores.
What does that mean? Redirect city funds? What city funds are going to these corporate supermarkets right now? Is the city of New York paying for those supermarkets? What city funds is he talking about? I'd love to see what he even means by that. Unless he means charging the corporate supermarkets higher taxes and then taking the money from those taxes and using it to finance these city-owned grocery stores, which again is quite a grift too. That's what the city of New York is doing, right? By charging taxes to the privately owned supermarkets, they're basically taking their profit margin, taking the money out of their bank account, and then using it to fund a competitor against that. It's like NPR and the radio business, where those of us who work in commercial radio then have to pay taxes to pay for the government-owned radio station. This guy is a totalitarian lunatic. A Democrat.
Stores whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging. These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent.
That's brilliant too. They're not going to have to pay property taxes or rent. Well, wait a second. Who owns the building where the grocery stores are in? They're just going to give them the space for free? Or is the city of New York going to purchase the buildings? Because real estate is super cheap in New York to buy a grocery store space. What do you mean they're not going to have to pay rent? Are the grocery stores only going to be in currently owned and operated buildings that the city government owns? And why wouldn't they have to pay any taxes? Boy, this is quite a setup that he's got going here, isn't it? And they're going to pass on those savings to you. That's my favorite part. It's like he's doing a commercial. This is scary. But actually, what's super scary about it is he's currently in the lead right now in the polls. That's not the only scary thing about him. He also has been caught on camera saying some pretty extraordinary things like this.
Alhamdulillah, there are 1 million Muslims in this city. 200,000 of us are registered to vote as Democrats. In the last election, only 7% of us voted. Now, I will not blame anyone because often it feels like there isn't much to vote for. But this June 24th, with early voting starting tomorrow, it is an opportunity for us to show that Muslims don't just belong in New York City, we also belong in City Hall. Because yesterday I stood on the debate and Andrew Cuomo stood next to me. And here was a man who was the governor for a decade, and he could not name a single mosque he had ever visited. He could not name it because he does not care.
Wow. Let me just pose a hypothetical to you. When Ed Koch was mayor of New York back in the 70s and 80s, he ran one year against Mario Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo's dad. Now, Ed Koch was Jewish, Mario Cuomo, Catholic. Imagine if Mario Cuomo went to a church meeting like this meeting of Muslims in New York and said to them, hey, there's a whole lot of Catholics and Christians here in this town. And, we belong in City Hall. If we could just start voting here, we'd take back that City Hall. Ed Koch, he can't even name a church in this town. So let's get all these Christians in City Hall, finally and for once. That would seem kind of religiously bigoted, wouldn't it? And by the way, all you Democrats who like to preach to us about separation of church and state and how, you're a theocracy because you Christians want this and want that. And until you condemn this guy preying on religious factionism in New York and trying to go to a group of Muslims specifically identified as Muslims, talking to them as Muslims and saying, we deserve to be in City Hall. We Muslims, we're going to have our place. Until you can start calling this crap out for the religious sectarian kind of anti-American, anti-e pluribus unum bigotry that it is, you have no place to tell us Christians that we can't have a voice at City Hall. And that's, by the way, not even the worst of it with this guy. I point this out to you just to let you know The New York City, our largest city, they're about to name him their nominee for the Democrat Party. It tells you plenty about New York, but it tells you even more about the Democrats.
I am someone who I would say am less comfortable with the idea of banning the use of certain words, and that I think it is more evocative of a Trump-style approach to how to lead a country.
What the hell is he talking about? We're not the ones who ban words. I'm not into banning words. I'm not like Trump. No, the left literally bans words. There are things we are not allowed to say. Not profanity, just words that you're not allowed to say. You know the words. And how is that a Trump thing to ban words? Has he been to a college campus recently? By the way, where'd the accent go? Oh, there's no Muslims in this room, so he can talk like a New Yorker suddenly. I don't know.
And I think especially when we've seen.
Sure, but like, does that just make you uncomfortable? Like the phrase "globalized intifada" from the river to the sea. Does that make you uncomfortable, or do you think?
Okay, those are different. Those are super.
Not
different.
They're not
those are
really
like different genres.
I'm sorry, I'm asking Zohran. Then they're not really different to me, and to some people, they're not different.
You know, I know people for whom those things mean very different things. And to me, ultimately, what I hear in so many is a desperate desire for equality and equal rights in standing up for Palestinian human rights. And I think what's difficult also is that the very word has been used by the Holocaust Museum when translating the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising into Arabic, because it's a word that means struggle.
Sure.
And as a Muslim man who grew up post 9/11, I'm all too familiar in the way in which Arabic words can be twisted, can be distorted, can be used to justify any kind of meaning.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it leaves me with a sense that what we need to do is focus on keeping Jewish New Yorkers safe, and the question of the permissibility of language is something that I haven't.
Yeah, he doesn't really look at the permissibility. So globalize the intifada is totally cool with him. From the river to sea is totally cool. Did you notice how many times he had to pause and calibrate his words and thoughts? That's not how normal people speak when they're speaking from the heart or just off the top of their heads about what they believe and what they truly feel. Right? But see, he's saying exactly as much as he thinks he can say in this setting to make sure that he leaves himself wiggle room for whatever the hell he's going to do when he's mayor of New York. And at the same time, not offend anybody who he's trying to get a vote from. New York could fundamentally change like that after tonight's election, depending on the outcome. And I'll give you the latest polling, by the way. The latest polling shows that he is in first place. They're using this thing called ranked choice voting. That means that you don't just go in and vote for one candidate and then walk away. Who do you want to be mayor? This person. Okay, you're done. No. Because they go, here's my first choice, here's my second choice, here's my third choice, here's my fourth choice. And then what happens is they count all the ballots. And by the way, ranked choice voting, it's actually an interesting concept when it comes to primaries if done right. For instance, Virginia last time around, the Republican Party used ranked choice voting to determine their nominee. The winner ended up being Glenn Youngkin, who ended up becoming the governor. In New York, one of the drawbacks of it is, first of all, because of the enormous number of votes that are going to come in, they can't even start voting until every ballot is delivered. Every mail-in ballot, every drop-off ballot, every overseas ballot, every military ballot. You can't start counting until all the ballots are in. They may not know the winner for like over a week, right? Because here's what happens. You count all the ballots, and if the top candidate doesn't have 50% plus one, what they do is they eliminate the last place person, the person who ranked the lowest out of the candidates. Then they count again. Because if the person who was last place was somebody's first choice, well, now they go to that person's second choice. Does that make sense? And you keep doing this, and then you eliminate another candidate, and you eliminate another candidate until you get enough people who have ranked a person to get 50% plus one. That's how they're doing this. So it makes it a very difficult election to poll for. But the latest poll that went through all those machinations, Emerson did this poll. It's in the New York Post today. It shows this guy, the crazy communist who loves the idea of globalize the intifada, the person who wants to take over the grocery stores of New York City and the government run them. The changes his tax depending on the audience talking to. The guy's endorsement. That guy, as of now, as of the last poll, is in first place in the Democrat primary for mayor of New York. And our friend Clay Travis points out Polymarket. This is the betting wagering site that covers these things. Look at the trend. The blue line is Mamdani, and the orange line is Andrew Cuomo. And over the course of the last several weeks, Cuomo has cratered. Mamdani is now up, and he is currently leading the Polymarket polls on who will win this mayoral primary. But before you freak out too much, I'll give you a final snapshot on how this thing's going to play out. Because New York is weird. I used to live there, and the ballot actually has tons of parties. Everyone says we're a two-party system. Not in New York. In New York, there's tons of parties. Eric Adams, the current mayor of New York, remember him? He's not a Democrat anymore because he got sane and rational about the border and immigration. So Democrats hate him. Well, he's still running, and he'll be on the ballot as an independent choice to be reelected. He'll get a lot of votes. Andrew Cuomo, even if he doesn't get the Democrat primary nomination, he's already on the ballot. I believe that he is the nominee of the Liberal Party. So Andrew Cuomo will be on the ballot. Yeah, the guy who let thousands of people die in nursing homes and was a totalitarian tyrant. He's got the nipple rings. He's crazy, Andrew Cuomo is, but he's going to be on the ballot. And then this guy, this Mamdani guy, he'll be on the ballot if he wins the Democrat primary tonight. He'll be on the final ballot in November. And so will the Republican nominee, who will be Curtis Sliwa, the founder of the Guardian Angels and a radio talk show host. Think about it for a minute. This is a 66% Democrat city compared to 33% Republicans. But if all 33% Republicans vote for Curtis Sliwa, and you've got all the Democrats split between Andrew Cuomo, the communist, and Eric Adams, I don't want to get ahead of myself. It's only June. We got a lot of game to play, but there's a lane there. There is a lane there for a Republican to win the mayor's race in New York, and all these lunatics disappear. It's a slim lane, but the lane is there. People often ask me, especially younger people who don't have a memory or know the history of these cities, when will there be a Republican mayor of New York again? When will there be a Republican governor of New York? When will there be a California Republican governor or a Republican mayor of Los Angeles? Will that ever happen again? And I always give them the same answer. Yes, of course it'll happen when things get bad enough that the people in those cities and those states finally say, oh, please, we can't do this anymore. We got to get a Republican in here. It happened in New York. George Pataki became the governor of New York because Andrew Cuomo ruined the place. And Rudy Giuliani became the mayor of New York City because Ed Koch and David Dinkins ruined the place. And they turned it around pretty quickly. See, this is the tough thing about being a Republican. You fix problems, things are running great, and then suddenly the Democrats can come back in and ruin it because they can say, oh, we don't want that old fart anymore. We want to have, globalized universal health care or whatever. And then they get into office. Same thing in Los Angeles. People think I'm crazy. It was just in the 1990s that Richard Riordan ran. This is after Tom Bradley had been mayor of Los Angeles for like 5 terms. Mayor for life, they used to call him. Richard Riordan, a restaurant owner in downtown Los Angeles, said this city is dysfunctional. It's broken. You can't do anything. You can't get a permit. You can't build. And by the way, we're paying all these taxes and there's trash and people living on the streets. And the people of Los Angeles said, yeah, he's right. Because things were that bad. Pete Wilson at the same time in the 90s. In the 1990s, not too long ago, the mayor of New York, the mayor of Los Angeles, the governor of New York State, and the governor of California were all Republicans. And I promise you it wasn't that long ago. And I promise you it can happen again if things get bad enough.